Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another SBK preview where we will be previewing the Roundup's Grand National Festival of 2021. The world's most famous race is back, and after a fallow year due to the impact of COVID, we're obviously all thrilled to have it back. And we've got some special guests to grill on this race and the festival itself. But before we get started, we have a bit of very important housekeeping, not least because we've just come out of a very, very exciting Cheltenham Festival where we did get whipped by the Irish. But if you did back any of those winners, a £10 bet on every winner at this year's Cheltenham Festival would have won you nearly £1,500 more with SBK versus other bookmakers. And a shout out to this very preview, as the last time we were here, Mr. Johnny Moore put up both Flooring Porter and Vanillier. Vanillier was 50-1 at the time. So we give you winners and we give you the best prices. So this is the place to be. And one of our special guests this evening, Tom Collins, also put up Bob Ollinger and put the kettle on. So pretty nice double. Thrilled that we've got Tom back with us tonight. So thank you for joining us, Tom. I bet you're really looking forward to another big festival to get your teeth into.
Hi, Jess. Yeah, of course I am. I mean, I can't promise I'm going to put up anything as good as Vanillier, 50-1 shot. What a shout by Johnny Moore. But hopefully a few winners going to be pointed out in the next half an hour on this podcast, especially one in the Grand National.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a really special guest joining us tonight who knows the Grand National well. Well, he knows quite a few Grand Nationals. He's a trainer of the Midlands, a Welsh, and of course, a virtual Grand National. And that is Christian Williams, who has a live contender in Potter's Corner. Thank you, Christian, for joining us tonight. Thank you.
Good to be involved.
We'll crack in straight into it. It's obviously the 173rd running of the Grand National. It's we really missed it last year, and I think if anyone missed it more than any of us, it would have been you, Christian. Your horse, Potter's Corner. It must have been a massive blow to have had a horse you were prepping for a race like that and then having to put him on the back burner and then come back again. What's this year been like for you and the Potter's story?
It's been a bit slow this season. We haven't he ran quite well in the cross country race in October, but horses weren't running great through the winter, so we haven't been too hard on him. But last year, obviously the main name last year was the Welsh National, and he had such a hard race in the Welsh National last year that I actually think he's in better form going into this year's Grand National than he was last year. It was quite hard to get him back after the Welsh National last year. So the main aim this season, he won the Welsh National last year, so that was his main aim last season. The main aim this season has always been the Roundup's Health Grand National. So we think he's in a good place, and we're obviously looking forward to it.
It's great to hear that this has been a slightly more straightforward route, because obviously, sadly, he was pulled last minute from the cross country at Cheltenham, which was going to be one of his main aims. Importantly, how is he from that? And was it artificial? And is it something not to worry about looking ahead to the Grand National?
Yeah, as I just said, the main aim has always been Aintree. So when it was a slight setback going into Cheltenham, then obviously his big target was Aintree. So just a thought process then was just to wait, and maybe replicate a racecourse gallop instead of going to Cheltenham. So yeah, there'd be no negatives from not running at Cheltenham. We're in a good place, and we're looking forward to a week Saturday.
Yeah, and you obviously avoided Tiger Roll there, and you don't need to worry about him going into this one now as well. He's due to run off the same weight as he was set in 2020, despite his rating dropping by £3. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't really take a view on that. Really, it's you just take what weight you're given and accept that. And you obviously they tighten the race up a bit now by giving the classier horses a little bit of a chance to compress the weight. So you near enough know from a Potter's Corner view on what weight you're going to get. So I wouldn't have thought a pound or two would make much of a difference. He's in and around similar to weight to last year, and yeah, no, we're looking forward to it. We're happy with the weight, and everything's good.
I saw that he went to Cheltenham prior to him being pulled out to have a spin over the cross-country fences. He seems to come alive at these kind of obstacles. Do you think the national fences will spark enthusiasm in him as well?
I would have thought so. I probably run him over hurdles. Shouldn't have probably run in the last day over hurdles. And we took Captain Ord up to Kelso last week, run him over hurdles, expecting him to run well, and he pulled up, run disappointing, and his chase form has been strong all year. So perhaps that's just a bit of a lesson to be learned as a trainer, that I probably shouldn't have run him at Exeter the last day. Horses weren't quite flying at the time, and I also think it's very important that the horses just come into form, jockeys riding winners, trainers training winners, and the whole yard seemed to be going well. So I think that's massively important in obviously going into any race, but just gives you confidence, gives jockey confidence, gives the trainer confidence, giving instructions, and the horses just seem to things just seem to go for you when the horses are in form.
Yeah, and obviously the training of the horses, that's all in your control, but things like the weather and what we're seeing at the moment is a particularly dry spell. Does that concern you for a horse like Potter's Corner and the ground, which could be on the quicker side?
No, I wouldn't have thought so. No, I would have thought that there'd be the best of ground staff around up there, and the whole team come together, and people from other tracks go, and big massive team effort at Aintree. And I would have thought you need enough guaranteed ground to be on the soft side of good for the Grand National, every season from now on, from a safety perspective, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. And you yourself, you rode in Grand Nationals. You had a really good spin on Royal Leclerc. You were second in. That was back in 2009, was it? Do you feel like the Nationals change in terms of a real stamina test? You see a lot of horses with a bit more speed now coming into it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, the fences. They've obviously the fences. Probably for the best have been modified, and it's just a very competitive stay and chase now, and it's obviously still built up as a Grand National, and the fence has still got the specialist names. But yeah, it just looks like a big, just a nice competitive handicap now, and a lot of horses jump around, and we think that he's fairly adaptable. When he jumped across country fences, he seemed to take to them. When we ran him in October, we looked after him for a circuit, and he took to them fairly quickly. So I'd be surprised if at his age he's not fairly adaptable and doesn't pick things up fairly quickly. So we're hoping he'll take to the track.
Yeah, absolutely. So everything is all systems go. And I'll bring in Tom Collins now, because with Potter's Corner, you've got quite an obvious, genuine sort of Grand National type of horse with your hand on Christian's hands. He's won a Welsh National. He's accepted the test of a Midlands National. When you're looking at a race like the Grand National, what are you looking for now in the year of 2021? Do you feel like you need a staying chaser, or you need someone that can be adaptable, who does have a bit of pace? What are you looking for?
I think you need a mixture of both. You obviously need a horse that stays the trip, which Potter's Corner has already proven that he does in the Welsh and the Midlands National. And you do need a bit of speed now. Maybe in the past you didn't. A slogger would have done you, especially if you're a punter. You'd be looking for a horse that would definitely stay no matter what. And the speed horses used to tend to get found out. But I don't think that's the case nowadays. There are plenty of speed horses in this year's renewal, for example. Cloth Cap has plenty of speed. He's at the top of the market, and any second now he's won a fair few times over 2 miles as well. So I think everyone now knows that you can win this race with speed horses. However, you do need to be able to stay the trip. Potter's Corner's got that in abundance, stamina. And also you need a good mark. The likes of Easy's Land, who's now unfortunately not going to run in the race, his mark was atrocious in my opinion. There's no surprise that after a poor run at Cheltenham, bearing in mind his price, that they're not going to go to Aintree because his mark was just massively inflated. And Potter's Corner does have a good mark in my opinion, a mark of 149. He achieved a racing post rating of 157 when he won the the Welsh Grand National. So although he's racing off £4 higher, I think there's plenty of leeway there, and he's got every chance at the prices.
Yeah, you talk about having the right weight, and these Grand Nationals are becoming classier and classier, getting the likes of Bristol de May, and through the former Native River, it leads back to the Gold Cup, and horses like Annabelle Fly ran well in Gold Cup. So these Grand Nationals are becoming stronger in terms of the quality. There are some more unexposed horses in there as well. Where do you think, Tom, where are you looking in terms of your selections, in terms of all those factors, having the right weight, having that little bit more of a speed? Like where are you falling down on with those in mind?
Well, we saw the Irish domination at the Cheltenham Festival, and the anti-post market for the Grand National was suggesting that it could be Irish domination again in general. There's a fair few Irish runners at the top of the market, although obviously Potter's Corner and Cloth Cap are exceptions. I'm going to be with an Irish runner. I think I'm pretty strong on Any Second Now. I was originally with him and Easy's Land. Obviously, the latter now doesn't run. I think Any Second Now just strikes me as a horse who is extremely well treated off a mark of 152 for a start. He looks a bona fide Grade 1 horse at his best. And he's a decent price at around 10, 12 to 1. His prep is unorthodox, let's say that. And I tend to fall for these unorthodox preps, like I did for Champ in the Gold Cup. Now, that obviously didn't work out, and hopefully it won't be a similar story here. But Any Second Now has already drawn comparisons to 2000 Grand National winner Papignon by both Ted Walsh and Ruby Walsh. Hopefully that won't ruin his price too dramatically, because I wouldn't want to see him go off favourite here. But I just really happy with his run last time out at Navan when he won pretty decisively over 2 miles. The trip isn't an issue. He's already proven over stamina trips, like in the Kim Muir when he bolted up over 3 mile too. I know it's an extra mile, but he seems to have plenty of stamina in the locker, and I just think he's the best treated horse in the race. And when that happens, you kind of got to weigh up your negatives and your positives, and this horse is just too well treated for me to ignore.
Yeah, interesting you said unorthodox. I wrote that down in my notes when looking through this. Ted Walsh was unorthodox with Papillon as well, and with Seabass, and that worked out. And it doesn't necessarily need to be the obvious route in. This horse also won the Kim Muir, so he can stay clearly. Actually, his full brother wanted it, Weatherby, Roxburgh Road, who's a 2.5 mile horse. He's another one representing the JP McManus Silks. Christian, what are your thoughts on horses coming in with these slightly unorthodox preps? Do you rate them, and do you think that it gives them a bit of an edge that they've got of the way that they're training?
Yeah, maybe it just seems to be a coming under the radar thing. Maybe obviously protecting their mark, and as you pointed out earlier, it's all about the weight, and the way the handicap system works. And obviously not dragging too hard a race out of them, maybe over extreme distances, and keeping them sharp at lesser distances. But going back to class horses again, Roy Leclerc, when I finished fourth on him, second on him in the Grand National, he actually finished fourth in the Gold Cup that year as well. So he backed that up, and obviously Gold Cup form, you're saying is strong form as well. But yeah, when Hedgehunter won that year, he was obviously well handicapped horse, and I expect he went down similar routes before then. He was just unexposed and was just well handicapped.
Yeah, and another one that is probably slightly ahead of his mark, and the betting is reacting very much because of that, is the one at the head of the market. And at the moment, Cloth Cap is 4 to 1. The Ladbrokes Trophy winner, I think is what you probably could say is the juice in the price is gone at this stage. He's a horse which perhaps is still, they haven't reached the ceiling, the glass ceiling with him yet. And he won the Premier Chase, a race that was used as a prep for Ballot Briggs and Aurora's Encore when they went on to win. Tom, what are your opinions on this? Do you think this horse is overhyped, or could he be a really good thing and he's just too short at this stage?
I think a bit of both. He's definitely overhyped because you can't really back a horse to what price is 4 to 1 for a Grand National this a few weeks in advance. That's just not my bag as a punter. I know plenty of people will want to be on Cloth Cap, and he is the informed horse in the race, isn't he? After the Ladbrokes Trophy win and the victory at Kelso, his jumping is excellent, and that's a massive tick in the box. He's clearly improved dramatically for the fitting of cheap pieces as well, and he achieved an RPR of 165 last time. Now he's not too far off running in a Gold Cup. Based on that evidence, he's the leading player in the race, and there's no surprise to him at the top of the market. Just from a betting perspective, I want to take him on because it's a Grand National. Anything can happen. We all know that. You could fall at the first, you could jump a clear round throughout and get no trouble in running. Like, there's so many imponderables in this race that at 4 to 1, I think you have to oppose him, though he is probably the most likely winner based on what we've seen this year.
So with the Grand National, lots of people come into it thinking, look, it's always a big price winner, although the last couple of years we've had, or the year before last, prior, Tiger Roll being a winning favourite, it's kind of sort of lost the edge of the excitement of finding a sort of a dark horse. is there a dark horse at double figure prices? I'm saying 20, 30, 40 to 1 in there that you're thinking, Tom, you could see this horse run well and run and find themselves in all the extra places that we probably will be getting for this race as well.
Yeah, well, I have a problem when these races come about, because I have this thing where I stick with these horses that I'm convinced are really well handicapped, even if they don't show it when I want them to. And Milan Native is one. Now, I put him up in the Cheltenham preview that we did, and he didn't run overly well, but he stuck on extremely powerfully up the hill. He was well back that day into 13-2, finished 9th, but he was really staying on nicely over a 3-mile one. I don't know if Denise Foster is going to send him to Aintree. I don't really know the plans, but he's still in the entries at this stage, around 20 to 1. He's got the ability. He's well handicapped. I think he'll go well if he runs.
Yeah, he's 29 to 1 at the moment. He did run. He ran all right. I was expecting a bigger run. I was expecting a bit of run from him, but it's a short amount of time. Christian, thoughts on getting a horse from, and you were going to do it yourself anyway, with Potter's Corner going from Cheltenham to Aintree. There's been a bit of discussion. I heard Harry Skelton saying how difficult it is to get a horse right from Cheltenham to Aintree. Do you think there's too much that's said about this, or is it just it's the way the trainer how good a trainer can be to get them from one to the other?
Probably not so much a trainer. It's obviously a little bit down to probably the horse, but I think it's only in this country we worry about that smaller gap. You know, in other countries, I think we back horses up quicker and run them more regularly. And as I said, going back to Ryder Clay, he ran in the Gold Cup, finished 2nd in the Grand National after that. And and going back to horses and prices, just think Potter's Corner last year, with the momentum we had, he was obviously well fancied, and I think we have a similar horse coming into the race this year, so probably going under the radar a little bit maybe. And going back to the favourite, just wonder whether, you know, Henry de Bromhead and Rachel Blackmore factor, whether whatever she rides might take over the favouritism on the day, maybe with her momentum.
Yeah, you're right. I think Manila Times has been the one that they've discussed, perhaps just as a JP McManus, and she's got a really good record with the horse. I think she's won on it twice now. A horse that looks to be crying out for further. He's currently 14 to 1, so you're right. It could halve in price by the time we get to Aintree next week. There is a horse that has had a longer prep, like a longer time off into it, and it's a horse that I quite like, and interested to know everyone's thoughts, is Kimberlite Candy, who again maybe this time last year would have come into the race at a shorter price than 15 to 1. He's a horse that clearly goes well fresh, but I'm just curious to know what you guys think of his jumping. He had a good spin round on the Aintree fences back in December. But he might not be absolutely tip-top perfect, but he's definitely been laid out for this race and trained for the race by Tom Lacey. Yeah,
it looks like JP looks to have a strong hand, doesn't he? And obviously the race is targeted, the big staying chase of the year. He looks to have a great hand, and you know, Tom Lacey, great trainer, knows the horse very well. He probably went out to form there 3 or 4 weeks ago, but I think his horse is coming back into form now, which, you know, again, talking about my horses earlier, that's a massive thing. And he's obviously definitely been, I say the main name at the start of the season, was maybe even last season, was the Grand National. So obviously cancelled last year, but I would have thought their aim all year would have been the Grand National. So I'd say that horse has got to be an obvious danger to anyone.
Yeah, that was going to be my last question to wrap up the Grand National chat. Christian, for you, looking at it, obviously Potter's Corner is your number one priority, and other horses that will come later, what you worry about. But who do you see as your main danger in this race?
It's St. JP. It just looks a very competitive race. You obviously Cloth Cap looks the obvious horse, and his form is solid. You can't knock anything about him. The way he jumps, the way he travels, the races he's won. He's obviously way in front of the handicapper, but you know, he's obviously a very short price as well. So, you know, Evan Williams' horse looks, you couldn't knock what Secret Reprieve has done this year, won a Welsh National. So I think there's plenty of horses in the race with chances, and that'll be great. Tom Lacey as well, a good friend of mine helps me out, any advice I need, and it'd be great. Just obviously whatever wins, hopefully there's a nice story behind it, and just looks very, very competitive race.
Yeah, and actually we haven't touched on Secret Reprieve, but he obviously was a very brave winner of the Welsh National in that instant with the girth snapping. He's only just gone 7, and it's been 80 odd years since a 7-year-old has won the race. Christian, what do you think about a horse of that age, knowing how to develop horses into winning staying chases at young ages? You've done it recently with Kitty's Light. How difficult is that to get them, ready for this kind of test at that young age?
I think it's different now when you, I think how competitive handicaps are now. You just need to take a chance to come in under the radar. So, Secret Reprieve could have gone for a, maybe a Whitbread or a Scottish National and won it and got up £10, and he go into next year's National then with £10 more on his back. So you really need to, to take a chance now. With same with Kitty's Light, when we run him in the Badger Beer, which backfired on me a little bit. It was I wasn't thinking of the horse as much there, just trying to raise a profile of the yard and win a nice Saturday race. And we probably threw him in the deep end a bit too much then, but he probably learned so much from that race and stood him in good stead then for his break through the winter. And obviously where he come out to Kelso, then he won nicely. Probably learned a lot. That he got a bit of stick at Wincanton the way he jumped and everything, but he probably learned a lot that day and picked a lot up during the race, which just stand him in good stead going forward. But yeah, as I said, going back to Secret Reprieve, sometimes you need to just take a chance in races like this and hope everything goes well. And people have got all weather schooling facilities now. They probably didn't have them years ago. So you can school horses now any day of the week. It can be wet, dry, doesn't matter what the weather or the ground is. You have your schooling facilities to school horses whenever you want. Whereas years ago, you probably only school them on the grass, and the grass would need to be. You couldn't school them if the ground was too quick. You couldn't school them if the ground was too soft. So, and horses are, they're so well prepped as 3-year-olds now for the sales. You literally get them back from the sales, jump on them straight away, and they've near enough been schooled before you even buy them as store horses. They're well handled at young ages. Yearlings, foals, a lot of these French horses bought as foal, put on lorries, brought over here. So I think horses are so much further forward now than they were years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have the beach as well. You forgot to mention that, and that did Red Rum a lot of good, and hopefully that can do you and everyone based down in Wales. And Evan Williams' record in the National is fantastic. He's got so close. He's had plenty of placed horses, and he clearly knows how to get a horse spot on for that race. So Secret Reprieve, who is currently 16-1, I think that price could come down significantly as we get close to the race with the profile he has. But we've talked about a lot of the main contenders. So I think, Tom, for you, you're staying with Any Second Now, who's 12-1, and your outsider, if we could call him that, Milan Native at 29-1. Is that where that's where you are at this stage?
Yeah, I mean the main selection is Any Second Now. I'll probably have a few more darts on the day. It's the Grand National. Who doesn't do that?
Yeah.
Milan Native will be in there if he runs. He'll be in my perms, etc. There'll be a few others. I'm interested in Secret Reprieve, Potter's Corner as well. Are both on my shortlist. So yeah, I'll probably end up back in 5 or 6. But Any Second Now is the number one.
Brilliant. Well, yeah, we're hoping Potter's Corner can add to his virtual Midlands and Welsh National success and do it for you, Christian. But we'll canter on through and go into the next races. Obviously, the Grand National meeting gives us a lot of other opportunities to see horses take their chances over the Grand National fences. The Topham is one of them, and at this stage, we've got a lot of entries. Obviously, the rain and the weather and the forecast and things like that, what will happen, we're still waiting to see. But there's a horse in here, Tom, which we're matching on, because he was a horse that caught my eye from Cheltenham. He's going to the Topham, and he represents the Alex Hales team. Talk to me about Huntsman's Son.
Yeah, so I looked at the Topham market a few days ago, and there's a couple of Irish horses at the head of the market. I think Live Love Laugh, Far Class is up there as well, and I'm just not really taken by those, especially at the prices. And I was just having a little glance further down. I was initially caught, my eye was caught by DBC, But Dan Skelton has done me again. He always seems to do me with his entries, and he's running him at Haydock on Saturday. So Huntsman's Son is now the #1 selection. I just think the quick conditions will make the difference for him. He's a horse that relishes the ground on the fast side. He's generally been lightly raced throughout his career as well. He must be quite a hard horse to train because he's had a couple of 500+ day absences. He might have picked up a few injuries. I don't know the ins and outs. But he always comes back better, which is just a good sign of a horse with a fantastic constitution and a horse that wants to win a race. And his listed victory at Wetherby back in October was mightily impressive. He beat subsequent Premier Chase, went third that day, 2 for gold. And then the ground was probably just far too soft in the Caspian Caviar Gold Cup when he was pulled up. As you mentioned, though, at Cheltenham, he really caught the eye, didn't he? He flew home late in the plate behind the shunter, who was just ridiculously well handicapped. The second far class is also in the top entries, also ridiculously well handicapped. But Huntsman's Son flew home. I don't think the jumping will be an issue. He's quite well treated as well. Around what price is he? 20 to 1, maybe? I think he's a very good each way bet in the Topham.
Yeah, Christian was talking about trainers and form, and Alex Hales is having a pretty brilliant season, and recently it's just getting better and better for him. It's a race that it's you've got to get a lot of luck in as you do in the national. But interestingly, I was having a look at what the Willie Mullins team have in, and obviously they won it a couple of years ago with Cadmium, who and we've got Live Love Laugh, which, as you said, Tom, he's a horse that has been pretty unlucky. I feel like he just has, I don't know when the last time he won, but he's always a horse that's been, he looks like he's on the cusp of winning something big, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. He always is there or thereabouts. But as you say, when was the last time he won? Well, it was January 2018. Now, do you want to be back in a favourite that last won a race in January 2018? In the Topham, probably not, I would say. It's not as if his handicap mark has even fallen that much either, because he's always there or thereabouts in the races he competes in. And last time out at Leopardstown, God, that was heartbreaking. He was massively gambled on into 130 joint favourite, and then he got picked up in the closing stages by Machuca. He looked home and hosed that day. His in-running price must have been ridiculous. Look, he's a very consistent horse. He stays the trip well. He jumps well. He will be racing prominently as well. But the price for a horse that doesn't really win very often is a bit off-putting for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Christian, I don't know if you've been able to have a look, and if you haven't, doesn't matter. But out of interest, when you're looking at something like a Topham, is there anything that you'd be looking for? People don't, really know how they're going to fare on these big offences, and should we be looking at Cheltenham form? Should we look at more unexposed horses? What would you say a kind of horse? What is the type of horse that you need to have to win a race like this?
Maybe a horse that goes forward over this trip. Just maybe a horse us and them seems to be coming down in the weights. Run okay for a long way at Cheltenham if he comes over, but yeah, over this trip, over the way the fences are now, just maybe a horse that goes, just jumps out, goes forward and gets a nice position early, and a horse gets into a good rhythm then.
We'll move on to a couple of other races that we've got to look forward to. It looks like we might have another clash between Paisley Park and Time Hill and the Stayers Hurdle over 3 miles. Tom, what were your thoughts on Paisley Park's performance in the at Cheltenham and against a fresh Time Hill? What could we see?
Well, they're both exceptional stayers, Paisley Park and Time Hill, and it's kind of been one of the stories of the season, hasn't it? The major rivalry between the two. It was disappointing that Time Hill obviously didn't make Cheltenham. He suffered a setback just before the race. I think Time Hill is a better horse than Paisley Park, especially when the ground's on the quicker side. But there isn't much separating them. It's going to be another great race. I think Time Hill will probably come out on top if he's back firing again. Paisley Park's Cheltenham effort, what do I make of that? Well, I didn't think he would win the race beforehand. He hit a flat spot, which he always does, but he stayed on really nicely up the hill, and that's your positive. He refound his stride and was closing towards the line. So he's still got all of the ability that he's shown in previous seasons. He's still the same Paisley Park, but in Time Hill, there's a younger rival who has the same level of ability and comes here reasonably fresh.
Yeah, reasonably exactly. I think it's a big bonus for him going into this. There's an Aintree Hurdle as well to look forward to, which is an interesting race in that we don't have a championship race like this at Cheltenham. So over the 2.5 miles, it'll be fascinating seeing horses coming back from 3 miles, stepping up from 2. It looks like the likes of Abracadabras, Jason the Militant, Booba Dare, interestingly, perhaps Song for Someone, all heading to this race. Is this a race that you've had a look at, Tom?
To be honest, I haven't had a massive look at it, but from what you just said, it sounds like horses that wouldn't have featured in the champion hurdle are turning up here. Jason the Militant is an interesting runner, I think, with the better ground. Most of his forms come on testing ground in Ireland, but he ran, I think it was a bumper. He ran behind Envoy LN on good ground. Now I could well be wrong there, but he's always struck me as a horse that would be better in faster conditions. And he would be the interesting one for me, though it's fair to say I haven't had a proper in-depth look at that race yet.
Yeah, the entries are going to come out. There's a horse called Buzz that might be running in that race as well. So fingers crossed. We'll see if he lines up, because he's coming in there fresh. Now there are plenty of other races that we could go through at the moment. We're lacking on entries, we're lacking on declarations. But Christian, I want to talk about a horse of yours who was a bit of a surprise, first time out winner of her bumper. I wonder if it surprised you, because she was 100 to 1 shot. She's called Mansaline, and you are thinking of giving her a couple of entries at Aintree.
Yeah, it was. We don't really train too many bumper winners. We're at the stage in our career where hopefully that'll change and we get a better quality of horse, capable of winning bumpers, obviously off level weights. And but no, she does everything okay at home. You know, like our better horses, Kitty's like Potter's Corner, they'd never show you a whole lot at home, and they'd work to a level, you know, literally pounds and pounds behind their rating. So, but she does things nicely at home, you know, bit behind the bridle, a little bit slow, but she's like a different mare on the track than like we've seen at Warwick. We obviously hadn't experienced that before because that was her first run. So it was a great surprise early on at Warwick to see her travelling within herself, and I thought she was very impressive. And you could try and knock a performance all you wanted. You couldn't. I don't think you could pick a hole in the competition, and the way she did it. So yeah, she's an exciting mare, and she doesn't look like a mare. She looks like a gelding. She's a big, strong type. She's by the stallion she's out of. He must be a little bit of a freak of a stallion, because he gets hardly any mares. She's got no pedigree at all, this mare, and he gets very little mares numbers wise, and he produces, you know, Brave Man's Game, and now this mare's come along. So he could be a punching way above his weight as a stallion, brave man Sonia, and so it's nice for him as a stallion. But no, she's exciting. I think she's improved a good bit since her run. So we're looking forward to she'll get an entry on the Thursday in the mares race, and we'll probably enter her on the Friday as well against the geldings. Maybe look at the mares allowance. But we'll talk it through closer to declarations.
Well, very best of luck with that, and hoping that can give you a bit of good luck ahead of a big week coming up with Potters and Mansaline as well, if she does run. Before we finish up, Tom, we'll come back to you and just go for your nap of the festival. I suppose the big one, the Grand National, being the one that you've looked at the most. It's going to be Ted Walsh's horse, is it?
Yeah, why not nap in the Grand National? Where could that possibly go wrong? But yeah, any second now, the nap in the Grand National.
Nap in the Grand National, that you've heard it here first. Christian Williams, I don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that we're sticking with Potter's Corner. And the best of luck to you. I'm gonna throw out Barrow Saint there. I think it's another one that's been campaigned for this race. And last year was primed for a big run. Better ground is also the key to him. We've got Willie Mullins, he's just been unstoppable. Just go back to that Irish Grand National win and see how he won that. And I think he could be a really big danger in this race. So those are our Grand National insights, and hoping that everyone has a very successful few days at Aintree. Best of luck to you, Christian. We'll be rooting for you. Hope he gives you a really good spin round.
Thanks, Jess. Yeah, we're excited. Only a week to go now, so fingers crossed.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Jess. Look forward to it.